Hi, everyone. I'm John Lux. I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida, and welcome to another edition of Film Florida Friday. Film Florida Fridays are interactive conversations about current topics, initiatives, and relationship building in Florida's screen production industry. Today, we're talking about stunts in production. In a moment, our panelists will introduce themselves and we'll ask some questions. During that time, we're going to ask everyone to keep their microphones on mute to avoid background noise. After we've gotten through our scripted questions, we'll open it up to the audience for questions and conversation. At that time, though, please use the hand raising function under the React button so we can call on you. We're going to ask everybody to keep their questions and comments brief in the interest of time and out of the fairness of others that want the opportunity. As always, Film Florida Fridays are free to attend, but we hope you'll consider donating $20.25 for our 2025 fundraising campaign. The donation link will be posted in the chat box, or you can always find that on the top of our website. If you're not a member of Film Florida, we hope you'll also consider joining at filmflorida.org. We did have, as I mentioned, one of our panelists had to back out last minute, and so it's just me and Artie today. But with that, let's get going. So Artie, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us how you got in the industry and eventually got into stunt work.
Hi guys, my name is Artie Malesci. I started out working for the Miami Seaquarium back in the early 70s, came out of college and with a marine science degree, looking to work there to help collect the animals and take care of them. And I started working as a diver. Eventually I got onto the collecting boat, which eventually was hired by quite a bit of filmmakers to do a lot of shark stuff. So started doing the James Bond movies whenever the old days, with Roger Moore and Sean Connery and a few of the other Bonds. But the sharks were my basic end of the business. We would fish for them, catch them, handle them under the water, and we met a lot of I met a lot of great filmmakers at that time. My hobbies, I used to rodeo and race dirt bikes, and things just kind of started turning around where people would ask me, hey, do you want to fall out of this building? Do you want to get hit by a car? Do you want to crash a motorcycle? What do you think? Yeah, I mean, how much do I get paid? And they told me, and I went, oh, yeah, I can do that like all day long. So it just kind of brought me into it. The animals have helped me too. My hobbies are training dogs and horses, and I've had bears, and I've had a lion, I've had a lot of different animals that, being working at the Seaquarium, it enabled me to get involved with people like Rico Browning, who was the original creature from the Black Lagoon, wrote and invented Flipper, and all the Ivan Tours people. So I just started fitting into a niche. At that time, there was only like 3 real stuntmen in Florida. So I just was like the young guy, throw him in there. Who cares what happens to him? He's young, he'll heal. So that was how I got started into it.
Now, when people hear of the word, stunt performer or stunt actor, there's a lot of different roles that someone in your shoes fills. Talk a little bit about what are some of the different roles that you work under the umbrella of stunt work.
Well, stunts include a lot of different departments. And when I was told when I first got in this business, if you want to be in this business, you need to learn what all these people are doing. Everything from hair, makeup, wardrobe, grip, electric, camera, special effects, props, transportation. You need to know what all these people's jobs are, because they're gonna impact your job. So, which I love all that stuff. So, I mean, not hair, makeup, and wardrobe so much as I do special effects and props and guns and things. But I got involved with special effects a lot, because those are the people that are going to hurt you. They're going to blow you up by accident. They're going to drop you from something, and it's not going to work. So you better learn how to make sure it works for yourself. And I tell young stunt people, please, not to say that your stunt coordinator is not a great guy or your special effects person isn't a great guy, but please know as much as they know about what you're going to do, because that's what keeps you safe. So anyway, you work through a lot of different things. And again, I mentioned the animals. That was another umbrella that I worked under, because I worked with a lot of wild animals, and I had to understand and know how that all works and what their instincts are, just like with sharks. Sharks' main instinct in life is either to eat something or run away from it. So now you know, if you have a hold of that shark, what does he want to do? He wants to get away from you. So it's almost like sitting on a bull or bucking bull. What's he want to do? He wants to get you off of him. So you just learn these different trades in different ways, and the camera department was a major help for me eventually as a second unit director and stunt coordinator. On I understand the lenses, the type, what I need to do to make this film correct.
Well, and that's great advice for anybody working in the industry, but I've never actually thought about it from your perspective of understanding all the different departments, because that's going to help you do your job better. So it's really great advice. Now you're modest, but I mean you're a legend in the industry. We're obviously lucky to have you here. We've had you on our podcast as well. One of the few people actually that we've wanted so much to have an appearance in both of them. But talk a little bit about how, you've been around for a little while. Talk a little bit about what keeps you passionate about stunt work.
Well, everything about it, because it's always different. I don't, you can slide a car around this corner, but you haven't slid it around this other corner. So it's going to be a little different. You're not going to roll the car over. You're not going to crash the car. It's always this, the stunt is basically, oh, let's go crash a car, but there's 100 ways to do it. The same with everything that's evolving in our business. We've gone from John Wayne fights to John Wick fights. There's a lot of difference in those two kind of fights. So you learn, your fight choreography changes. There's so much wire work in the business now, going back to all the Marvel stuff, people flying and jumping and doing. And, then we get into the CGI world, which is now changing in the AI world. So it's a constant evolution. But what keeps me passionate is really doing the stunts for real, without using, the computer generated issues. I like seeing cars rolling down the road because they hit a pipe ramp, not because it was a CG car. I like seeing people, riding horses and getting shot and falling off of them for real. I like seeing, people shooting guns and actually hitting something within the first 10 bullets they shot, instead of hitting 1,000 rounds and they never hit anything. So it's just, people go, why aren't you ever going to retire? And I go, no, I love this. Everything's different. I like um, I like the pressure actually of being able to perform and do what they're at, giving them the vision of what they want to see.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the evolution of the craft. What are some of the biggest changes you've observed? You mentioned a little bit, but in terms of how action or stunts are planned and executed.
Well, the bigger the movie, the more intense it gets. But the bigger the movie, usually the more time you have to sort out what's going on. So, you start by basically storyboarding all of your action sequences. And now, which was usually just done on with a pen and a paper, with stick figures, even now it's all just a computer generalized. I can give you the exact fight, car chase, everything on a computer. I can show you the different camera angles. I can show you everything you need to know and shoot a previs, of all of this action before we ever make a decision that that's exactly what we want to do. So the previs has become a whole separate entity into our business. Even on TV shows now, the directors are going, oh, can you show me that stunt before we do it? Yeah, I can, and I will, but it's not going to be as, it won't be as death defying, because I don't want to take the chances and spend the time and effort and money to do it totally, but I can simulate it to give you the idea on what it's going to look like. Now, if you want me to really rehearse the stunt completely, well, now that's a whole different ballgame, but I have had that asked of me on the bigger films. So when you get into that 50 to $100 million range, those films I feel are easier for me to do than it is for the TV show that wants to see a James Bond episode every week. Because now I have no money, no time, and I have one day to do it. And so now my prep is a whole different ball game. I'm kind of running and gunning. I have different certain ways that I like to film things, and I like the stunt people that I use. I can count on to do what I'm asking, and it becomes a, it becomes a time factor and money factor all the time. And it just seems to me that people that want to learn to be in this business, I think TV is the best way to start because it's a constant running and gunning. It's you never really have the time you want. And like I said again, when you get on the big films, you can relax and go, wow, I got like 6 weeks of prep. I'm like chomping at the bit. I'm so ready to get ready to shoot that I'm going like, what do I do now? Until somebody says, action.
Yeah. Now, you talked a little bit about the safety and the risk that's involved. Let's spend some time there because unfortunately, it's still an overlooked part of the industry. How do you balance the art and spectacle of what you're trying to do with the safety of performers, cast, and crew?
Well, the first thing is, it's an accident that's going to happen. So you work backwards from what's the worst thing that can happen to a person doing this stunt. And now you work backwards from that to make them safe. And the same with anything that's going on. If it's a big special effects, pyro, explosions, shootout, cars rolling over, all these things, now you're working with all the departments to keep them safe. The special effects people, the camera people, grip, electric, all these people have to pay attention to what you're telling them, to where they can be, where they can't be, what's going on with everything. You explain it to the finest detail. You always say, no question is too small. Anybody has an idea or a problem or an issue or concern, please let me know. And I don't care who it is. It can be, the craft service person can walk up to me and go, hey, I just happened to notice that that rope over there is untied. Is that supposed to be that way? I go, well, thanks a lot. No, it's not. So, it's really keeping your head on a swivel. It's being very, very demanding in what I want done and how I want to do it. Usually it's something I've already done before and I know what to expect. And now it's up to the stunt performer to perform it. I can also have a sixth sense about me that tells me that something's not right for some reason. And it could be as little as I just saw a stunt guy that's supposed to jump from one roof to the other, but I saw him limping. And I walk up and go, what's going on? I was kind of practicing over, and I think I twisted my ankle. They go, well, then you're not doing this today. You have to be at 100% to make this work. Even though normally I all the time, usually I have a wire hooked to them, a safety wire, if I'm working at really high on high buildings. We were going from one building to another, maybe 100 feet to the ground. So they'll always have a safety wire on of some sort, but I never want them to have to use that because that's not the way it's supposed to work. It's supposed to work correctly. So these are things that you just, concern yourself with and have to pay attention to. As a stunt coordinator, and this may be getting ahead of some other questions, but as a stunt coordinator, I believe you should really be a really good stunt person first so that you understand everything that you're coordinating and not asking somebody to do something that you haven't done or wouldn't do or don't know about. I'll give you an example. I was actually talking about James Bond movies as a shark wrangler. Well, it went full circle and I became the stunt coordinator on License to Kill with Timothy Dalton. And we had to do a lot of really strategic skydiving to work our way into a little bitty street in Key West in front of a church where there's literally skydiving into a wedding. So I go, well, you know what? This is interesting because they got all these high tension wires. I got water, I got buildings, I got all this, and I got that. And so I hire the best guys I know, the Golden Knight skydiving team. And I go, hey guys, I want you to teach me to skydive so that I can understand everything I need to know about what your problems are. I go, okay. So I learned to skydive because I couldn't be honest with the directors and producers and say that I knew what their problems were and why we have to do this and why we have to do that. Now, of course, they can come into meetings and talk about it, but as a coordinator, I feel I should be the one understanding this. So that's just one step up the ladder there.
Well, and now are you always in full control of the situation when there's stunts going on, or do you have to rely on other people?
No, I'm in full control. People can tell me things or ask me things, and all that's great and good. Like I said, I'll listen to anybody because I could have missed something. but it's 100% my set. It's just like special effects when they're doing explosions and all these things that they're doing. It's their set to make things happen the way that they want it to happen safely, also. But yeah, it's a demanding position. It's not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of people out there now that are so-called stunt coordinators that either are friends of producers or directors and are fairly decent stunt people, but they'll get thrown into this coordinating position and then realize, oh man, this isn't for me. And a lot of the stunt people that I've trained throughout the years, helped in the business, that thought they wanted to be a stunt coordinator have come back, man, I don't know how you do this. This is because there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of things that go on from the time you hire a person. A lot of stunt people don't even know how they got on the movie, because it starts with me having to either double somebody or put a team together that can complete the action that I want them to do. So I'll go through, resumes after resumes, or reels after reels. Most of the time I try to hire people I know, but sometimes I have to go out of that envelope. And then I look at it, and then I'm doing a budget at the same time. I know how many people I'm allowed to have. Then I go to the director and producer and go, here's what I have. This is what it cost. What do you think? That's too much money. Figure something out. I go, well, the only way I can cut this back is you have to take stuff out of the script. I'm giving you the budget for what's written in the script. If you want less money, then take part of the action out. Well, we don't want to do that. Okay, well, I knew that was coming anyway. But so now I start formulating on who I can use or that can do maybe multiple tasks. Okay, so anyway, so I end up getting everybody approved, and I hire them, and they're all happy. They got a great job and they're having fun, but they really don't know how they got there. And that's the hard part of the stunt coordinating end of it, is getting the personnel you need and the equipment and everything organized to be able to film what you want to film.
Now, without naming names, I mean, I'm sure you have some horror stories where in that conversation that you just were talking about, you're saying this is what it costs. The producer says, I don't have that. And there's just the kind of butting heads. I mean, in the end, have you ever walked off or walked away from a project because you knew it was just not going to be safe?
Yeah, I have. I've basically said then I can't be here if that's the way you want to do stuff.
Yeah.
And I kind of
Now,
have a reputation about that. So I don't pull that out very often. And then I'll have somebody that said, well, that wasn't what I did, wasn't safe. And I'm going, no.
yeah.
I knock on wood, I've got over 10,000 hired man days at minimum in this business of hiring people. I've been doing this for 40 something years, and not one of my stunt people have ever spent the night in a hospital. We get hurt, and that's part of our game, but we'll go to the hospital, stitches or something, or maybe an x-ray or two. But yeah, so I get really offended when people say that, and I have walked off a show because of people feeling that I wasn't safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I it's interesting you do stuff, mainly on land, but you've also been the aerial coordinator above and marine coordinator below land. So talk a little bit about those two roles and some of the unique challenges that you have working both in the air and underwater.
Well, I'm a pilot for one thing, and I love aviation. I first learned to fly helicopters with back in the day with Don Johnson in Miami Vice. He wanted to learn to fly a helicopter. We had an aerial crew involved with filming Vice. Kenny Coleman was the pilot. Don goes, well, I'm going to buy a helicopter and learn how to fly it. You want to, what do you think? I go, well, I can't really afford a helicopter, but I'd like to learn to fly. He goes, well, we'll split the price of fuel or something. Okay, fine. So I learned along with Don to fly the helicopter, and then eventually, and this was a Bell Jet Ranger 206B. He wanted an A-Star, which I couldn't even afford the door handle on. So they sold that, and I said, well, I love to fly, so I'm going to buy an airplane. Well, airplanes are really cheap compared to helicopters. So I did, and so I just have a love of that. And actually, my second unit directing job was for a TV show in Orlando, and it was an aerial dogfight with two biplanes fighting and knocking one of them knocks the other one out of the air. So luckily, with a little bit of my knowledge of aviation and how to sell a punch, I've got a helicopter, gentleman named Paul Barth, and we put the cameras on that. We put cameras on the helmets of the pilots. We did all kinds of stuff, and I filmed this dogfight. And it was when you had cameras were, film cameras. But because of my knowledge and other people's knowledge of how to do all these things, we got her done. So from that point on, I kind of took that as a role, if I could have it, on a lot of films. And along with the Marine coordinating is the same thing too. It's South Florida. People come here to shoot the water. I've been able to have the ability to coordinate that and to, I have a lot of camera rental equipment, which includes motorcycles, cars, boats, and whatever. So those things were thrown into the mix. And marine coordinating to me is very easy because it's just getting the equipment you need and the people that operate it that are professional at what they do. And the team that we have, and I'll mention some names because Zach's on here, but Zach's part of that team, and Chris Bird and Bird Salvage, and a few of the local people that have helped me not only supply the equipment, but are smart enough to be able to get the boats where they need to be and how to function while they're in filming mode. So that marine coordinating was just part of the existence of South Florida, I feel, and I like doing it a lot. It's very challenging sometimes because you have all these weather issues. You got a lot of production demands. If you're filming at night, you got barges with lights on them. You got all the water safety people that have to be involved when people are going in the water, or even not. I always have water safety people, even if people just walking on docks. You God only knows what's going to happen. Excuse me 1 second. I have to get.
All right, everybody, we're going to pause. We knew Artie had a personal engagement that he had to tend to this morning. So just while we're in this quick break, I would encourage all of you to go to IMDb and look at Artie's credit list. It's phenomenal. I mean, he absolutely is a legend in this industry. And we're obviously lucky to have him in Florida. And also, if you want more from Artie, he was on our podcast this past February 2025. So season 7. So go to any of the podcast platforms that we're on and download that episode, because we got into some in-depth stuff, a little different than today, but some good stories as well. So make sure you check that out. Okay, Artie, you are back. Let's jump in. Like we were just talking while you stepped away about some of your credits, and I encourage people to go take a look at those. But is there any a specific stunt or a specific role that kind of sticks out for you through your career that you're particularly fond of, or even maybe that it was a kind of a turning point in your career?
As far as stunts that I've done myself personally,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a lot of them. In this business, there's certain stunts that people want to do, and they'll come. God, I've never done a pipe ramp, which is basically it's a pipe in the middle of the street. It's at a 45-degree angle, 30-degree angle, whatever it is, that you'll drive your car up, and it'll flip down the road, and it's fairly exciting, depending on how fast you hit it and what's going on around you. So I did the first one I ever did was on Miami Vice, the TV show, and it's an iconic car chase that takes place with a 1971 Plymouth Barracuda against the Testarossa, and there's also a Corvette in the chase too, which another stunt guy rolled over. But that pipe ramp was hit at 65 miles an hour, which most of them are hit at 45. It was done on the Second Avenue Bridge, and after I hit the ramp, I flew over the top of this boat and all kinds of stuff that was on a trailer. Originally, the Testarossa was supposed to drive under me, but the stunt man that was doubling Don at the time didn't feel his timing was correct to do it, so he didn't. But either way, the car really took a beating, rolled down, and I landed at the front at Tobacco Road, which at the time was my favorite bar. So it was pretty convenient. By the time I got out of this wrecked car, I just went to the bar. But not really. I have other things to do. But it was that was probably the first really big stunt I did. Prior to that, I've done I did a thing called Stunt 7, where I was out of Stiltsville and I doubled a guy that gets his stomach blown out and falls off the top of one of the stilt houses, and a few other things with cars and motorcycle laydowns and getting thrown out of windows and stuff. But that was probably the first one when I really said, you know what, I think I really am a stuntman. And I tell people that you're not a stuntman until somebody really comes up to you that you're superior, or somebody says, you know, you're a stuntman or a stunt woman, either way. It's funny because my wife is a set decorator, but she's done more stunts than most stunt people have done. I've thrown her in the middle of more stuff. She's done 100-foot descender falls. She's done fights. She's done car chases. She's done all kinds of crazy stuff. And she will never call herself a stunt person. She says, I'm a set decorator. But she is. But anyway, that was one of them. Another one was I did a cannon roll, which is where you put, in the old days, you would put literally, you get a tube and you put a telephone pole in the tube and you put black powder in there. And when you get to a certain point where you want the car to go flying in the air and roll over, you'll turn the steering wheel real quick, hit the button, and this telephone pole will eject and throw the car in a lot of different directions. Unfortunately, not really sure which direction sometimes. Well, I did a few of those, but no, I wouldn't say any of those were super exciting. But then I did one in Chicago with a hydraulic cannon, and it was a car chase, and they had tried it a couple of times before I got there to get a car high enough in the air that they could CG a motorcycle going underneath it, because in theory the police were chasing these bad motorcycle guys. So they called me up and said, what do you think? And I go, yeah, let me get down there and figure it out and see what we're doing. And I did, and I didn't have a lot of time to sort things out. And I really got lucky and guessed at the air pressures and things. And I got this car to literally do a complete forward flip, as if it looks like I T-boned a police car. But then I also set another car on the other side, which I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen exactly, but I thought, if nothing else, I can get from one car to the other and give them some gap underneath me. But when I hit that second car, it catapulted me up in the air so high that I can remember seeing the green street light and going, uh-oh, this is going to hurt. Because I'm now about 20 feet in the air, upside down. So, but the car continues to flip, and where I ended up, landing on the nose of the car, hitting, and then slamming to the ground. And excuse me 1 second.
Yep. So this is the downfall of only having one guest for an episode, is that when Artie has to step away, we have to fill some time, which is all good though. We are getting close to our end of the scripted questions. So if anybody does want to ask a question of Artie, go ahead and find that react button at the bottom of your screen and raise your hand on the Zoom buttons, and we will start lining up some people to ask some questions to Artie once he gets back. We have like one more, and then we will move on to audience questions. In the meantime, as I mentioned, I posted the episode of Artie from our podcast. That's on our website, but you can also find that on pretty much any podcast platform. Make sure you check that out. Katie posted the link to his IMDb page in the chat box as well, so we have that available to us. And I'll mention ahead of time that we are going to take a little bit of a break from Film Florida Fridays for the holiday, but we're going to be back after the beginning of the year. Have most of our episodes all lined up for the second part of our season, and we'll blink and it'll already be May and time for summertime. So make sure you make your plans to continue to join us for Film Florida Fridays. So welcome back, Artie.
All right.
Next question. Is there any type of stunt that you haven't done that you really would like to do?
I've done everything that can be done.
Which I guess is a good thing.
I mean, I've jumped boats over islands. I've done all kinds of fighting with all the wire work. I used to double Superboy. I literally, this is going back for the younger, now the people that like all the wire work, here's the beginning of time. I doubled, well, obviously the original Superman had wire work in it. Really basic stuff, but I doubled Superboy and I actually wore Christopher Reeve's Superman outfit. I was a lot bigger then. But I mean, I've hung under helicopters that were out of control on wires. I've had a lot of equipment failures that helped me learn how not to have equipment failures. But we do all these high descender falls, so I've literally jumped off of buildings that are 200 feet high. I hate, not that I hate heights, but I just never know where I'm going to land. So if I have a wire on me, that's cool. But sometimes you got to land on airbags or boxes or however different heights. And I always wanted the biggest landing spot in the world. Even though I really only needed 6 feet, I just never knew where that 6 feet was. Tried all that stuff. Lighting yourself on fire. That's a whole nother ball game. Getting hit by cars. That's another actual technique that you can't really practice a whole lot, but you know the theory of it. And that's what enables you not to get hurt really bad. I've never done a car hit that didn't hurt one way or the other, but at least there's a technique that's involved to help you not get hurt as bad.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of horse stuff. I've fallen off horses, shot off horses, had horses fall on me. Motorcycle crashes. Think of other things. Obviously, lots and lots of fights, a lot of shootouts. I consider myself a halfway reasonable weapons expert, handling and operations of them. I do a lot of, like we talked about, dog work. I've been attacked by everything you can think of, from elephants to mice. So yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything that's missing out of my little repertoire of events. Everybody wants to do bigger, better, badder things, but I think that the cannon the one I was talking about in Chicago was kind of one of the last stunts. What type of stunt like that? Automobile stunt. I don't think I could ever do a bigger automobile stunt than that one. So it just goes along with what, to me, it was just like every day was fun to do, whatever it was.
Well, let's start with some questions from the audience. We have one that I actually was kind of going to ask, and then it came into the chat box anyway. As far as advice you would give for people who want to get into this part of the industry, the question in the chat box is, how do you even find stunt work in this industry? How do you get on a stunt coordinator's radar?
Well, I always tell everybody, first you need to have pretty good athletic ability. You need to have, in theory, a world-class ability of some sort. It could be a gymnast, it could be a high diver, it could be a bull rider, it could be a martial artist, motorcycle racer, something that you do really, really well as an athlete. Then you'll take that skill level and you'll search out coordinators and you'll make a reel of this particular skill. And used to be you had to go to the set and hand them your headshot and whatever you could give them. Now you don't have to do that. Obviously, that's one thing with social media and computer situations that you can reach out. Like this is another thing I didn't bring up, but I was the first person on the East Coast to ever get into the Stuntman Association. It was always an LA-based system, but that association is made up of 136 of the best stunt people in the world, and that alone, anybody can go into and send their information to it, so that depending on where you live and who you may want to reach out to. But our association, you can reach out to anybody that's in there in a personal way and send them your real or even just a letter of that you're and what you're interested in doing and what your skills are. And at that point, most stunt people start in this business underneath somebody. Like if there's a lot of wannabes, so you'll get to know the person a little bit. Maybe he's just a stand-in on the movie set. And I tell people that too. Go work any way you can on a movie set as a production assistant, a stand-in, anything to learn and do, and then you'll meet people. And so you may meet a guy that's a PA or a girl that's a PA that you're just talking to general information, and then you know what? You could double this person. It's a pretty easy gag, but you look like them. What do you think? You want to care if you get thrown out of a boat or, fall down these stairs? And they always hope will say, sure, I'll try that. And then it's an ongoing process. It's a very, very long term. I tell people it's easier to be a doctor or a lawyer. You go to school, you learn everything you're supposed to learn. You come out with a piece of paper, you stick it on a wall, and now you're a doctor and you have an office, hopefully. This is an ongoing learning curve, and you don't know everything you should know for a minimum of 5 years in this business. Even if you worked once a week on a show, you would still not learn everything you need to learn for a long time. And it's up to the coordinator to take people that he can see has a future and help embellish it and make it that future available to them. But it's really on their own. I can show you how to do something. It's like you can go to school and learn whatever you want to learn, but if you don't practice it, you're not going to be really efficient at it. So like if somebody wants, well, how do I slide a car? Okay, I'll show you how to slide the car, but now you're on your own. Now you need to go get a car and you need to go learn to slide this car. Mm-hmm. Same with fights, falls, anything. You have to take it upon yourself to learn your skill levels and load your tool belt with different tools. You're not going to work in this business if all you know how. If you're a good martial artist, you'll work, but not as much as the guy that's a martial artist. He's also does fire, high falls, car hits, whatever. Add to that repertoire as much as you can so that you're really a good all-around person.
Another question from the chat box: is computer generated or AI stunts taking over and lowering the cost of dangerous stunts that are performed on screen? How is AI in CG impacting the stunt work?
It does. It helps a lot. I must say that I like it because I don't have to put people in such peril. as I would if I had to do it for real, especially explosions. I can have a person, jump off a little trampoline and have a little fire pop up, and the next thing you know, he looks like he's blown out of a 6-story building. So those type of things are helpful, and of course, it gets a little too much sometimes. I mean, not to knock, some of the big films where you're seeing cars flipping and flying all through the air, and you're just doing stuff. There's no way you could ever do that for real. It's exciting, and the audience likes to see that, but it's saving. If we tried to do those type of things for real, it, someone would get hurt for sure. So it does help. AI is becoming its own entity. Um, I like using it if I am storyboarding something, and I can build a virtual set, and I can do virtual people, virtual animals. I can do waves. I can do a lot of stuff with AI instantly. Where CG was always a complex system, where if you didn't have a computer visual effects person on the team to help you accomplish what you were looking to accomplish in the previses, then you weren't going to get it done. So now AI is easy to, not easy, and I'm not a real computer person, but you have to learn these things if you're going to continue in this business. But I can go to one of the guys that I work with a lot and just say, look, this is what I'm looking for, and I'll show him pictures and just a template of ideas, and he'll build a whole sequence AI within by the end of the day, So it's helping all around. It will unfortunately take work away from people, because you don't need to be sliding the car around the corner, but there's still you still have to have the technical person to do a lot of the establishing things that the AI is using and the CG is using. So we still using a lot of blue screen, which is your CG work, and it saves time and money, and that's where it's not going away. And the AI is making a bigger effect on it.
Yeah. Another question from the chat box. What do you look for in a reel? Should we have basic stunt fundamentals at the end, such as rolls, cartwheels, and such?
No, I'm looking for a reel. I'm looking for stunts. I want to see stunts. I want to see you. I don't want to see you training. I don't want to see you in a gym with 10 people, hooked on a wire and do it. I mean, again, I'm old school. Yes, I like to see that you can get hooked on wires and you can do flips and twists, and the person that's rigging you knows what they're doing, and so on and so forth. But I'd like to see that be taken into a stunt where you're done all that stuff and you're smashed through a wall, or you're picked up and thrown by some giant creature or something. I don't really want to see you training. I want to see you do the stunts that you've done. Now, if you're new and you're trying to get information to me, and you go, look, I don't consider myself a stunt person, but this is what I'm learning to do, then I look at it a different way. Now, okay, so this is someone that wants to try to be a stunt person, and he's showing me they have some ability, and they take in direction good, or they're whatever they're showing me, I put it in a lower perspective of a person that wants me to hire them as a stunt person because they're telling me they're a stunt person.
Talk a little bit about average pay. Question from the chat box is, what would the average pay for a stunt coordinator be for a low budget indie film? But also I want to take it to the other end. Like give us a low budget indie film, but also what's the range that a stunt coordinator should be looking for?
Well, you can go to screenactorsguild.org and look all that up.
Good.
But it goes basically, a stunt performer base pay is $1,256 a day for 8 hours. The stunt coordinator is twice that to 4 times that, depending on what's going on. It's everything varies, but that's the base pay. But the low budget films, they have lower rates. The stunt coordinating pay doesn't change on a low budget film, but the stunt performers' pay does change, and it can go down and to below like $400, depending on if it's let's say it's a if you're making an educational film or different types of commercials, different types of things. It all varies. That's why I say to honestly answer that question, you should go look it up on the Screen Actors Guild format.
Okay. Okay, now we have a science question for you. Do you or anyone else calculate impact forces, material failure physics, including by deceleration rates, energy dissipation, trajectory analysis, et cetera, in planning stunts, or is it primarily experience-based knowledge passed through the stunt community? She says she's trying to understand the physics and dynamics that many study in engineering school have real application here, or is it practical guides at work, or is it both?
The answer is both. It's a very good question.
All right.
Very good question, because yes, physics is a huge factor in what we do. My mother was a mechanical engineer for NASA, and when I started doing this, she would say, what are you doing? And I go, well, I got to jump this car over this canal, and I'm trying to figure out the speed and the height of the ramp and everything. She goes, okay, well, here's what I suggest. You take all the physics that are involved. You have the speed, your distance, and the trajectory of the vehicle. How much it weighs, how far can it go in certain causes and ways. And I go, hey mom, can I just like build this thing and get a junk car and do it? And she goes, yeah, do that. So I did. And she goes, and it went down, now it quit running. She goes, well, I'll get the truck and I'll push you up to speed because the car's not running anymore and you can figure it out. But yeah, the physics are a huge factor. It's kind of like you have everything that you think about, even putting a rocket into space. Look at all the things you have to deal with just to get, how much booster do you need to get to the moon? It's everything we do that it has anything to do with a mechanical apparatus is physics. Even the wire work, there's a certain amount of angles of the actual lines, so that you don't, it has to be a 45-degree angle, let's say, if you're pulling somebody 40 feet so they don't land on their head. There's certain pressures that you have to deal with to make sure you can move one mass from A to B. So then prior to that, it was all failure and success. What worked, I can tell you the wrong way probably to do every stunt ever done because I did it myself, learning how to do it. But it's their special effects teams help figure a lot of that out too, because they're the ones that have to initiate what's the actual action requirement is for what I want to do. So yeah, both.
I love that question, and I love the answer. Who would have known that I could have maybe had a future in stunt work? Because straight A student in physics, who would have thought, growing up? So
be on my team, right?
Yeah. So, all right, everybody, that's going to wrap up another edition of Film Florida Friday. Thanks so much, Artie, for joining us again here, as you did on the podcast. Thanks for all of you that are joining us today. And as always, thanks to Katie Collins for helping
can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had some, this was what I was asking in the chat. I had some major questions or concerns and was hoping that there was a segment that we would be able to discuss some of the logistics and the challenges in Florida, especially related to stunt work. If we can allocate just 2 minutes, I'll be brief.
Sure, go ahead. Where are you? I don't even see you talking.
Oh,
you have your camera
I don't
on?
know. If you scroll, I do. Can everyone see me okay?
I see you.
All right, fantastic. So without wasting folks' time, first and foremost, I'm a producer here in Central Florida and just recently launched my film production company. And part of the reason why I had to take the time to launch my own film production company is because the reality of it is we have such a transactional process with filmmaking here in Florida, where a lot of the work is centered around commercial work. And mind you, the opportunities are amazing, but one of the things that my team was very clear about is being able to adopt and create films that centers more on stunt work and so on and so forth was just not as tangible as we would like it to be, right? One of the things that's been very disparaging, actioning this and getting these projects lined up, so on and so forth, was just how difficult it has been from a logistical and also from a legal standpoint to create a space just for stunt work within our productions. And I don't know if anyone is aware of this, but if you talk about, for example, getting workers' compensation for folks who essentially want to do stunt work in Florida, you will basically have brokers pretty much laugh at you because it's just so damn hard to do, right? So one of the reasons why I wanted to essentially jump on this meeting is not necessarily to talk about stunt work in particular. I know there's nuances, I know there's challenges, I know there's, it's a particular field that requires a lot of practice to get really good at it. What I wanted to ask, that I wanted to join or come on and discuss is in this development stage of my company and also for the work that we have in 2026, because we haven't launched yet, how to essentially get, the additional resources, talk to the right individuals, so on and so forth, about making sure that we can action some of these projects and really lean into the community, just so that way we have a more tangible approach to actually executing this. So I'm just going to leave it on this. What I've had to resort to is literally hiring a stunt coordinator, which is no problem, who will actually have to do a workshop for us. And I'm converting MMA fighters into stunt men and women because, again, the access to the stunt community here has just been so isolated, right? To the point that it's non-existent. And somebody asked in the chat, how do I get stunt work? And that question is so valid. The reason why we don't see it being so prominent is because it's just not something that's prioritized here in the state of Florida. And I think it's not because creatives like myself and writers and producers don't want to. It's just really hard to essentially get it off the ground, considering the legal, the financial, and also the logistical investment that goes into it. So just wanted to get some insight from the industry leaders, the folks who have more experience in this realm, making sure I can take some notes, best practices. And if there's anyone who essentially is more than open to connect outside of this meeting in terms of what my team essentially has planned, I'm more than open to it. But that's where I essentially that was my question in a nutshell.
I have a quick answer to that. Once the film incentives went out of Florida, all the stunt people went out of Florida. They went to Georgia. They went to New Mexico. They went all over the place. Okay. We don't have the infrastructure to maintain the stunt people here anymore. That's the biggest problem. Low budget films or non-union films are really at a disadvantage, especially non-union films. We can't work on non-union films as a SAG stunt coordinator or performer. If you hire non-union people, you're getting the C team. Now your risk of failure and safety have dropped unbelievable. So you're not going to get insured. Taylor & Taylor out of New York will be the first one called before Lloyd's of London to insure your production. They do a lot of live. I use them for a lot of live show stunt events. But if the people working don't have the resumes, they're not going to insure you. It's that simple. It's who you hire enables you to function as a producer to get your film made.
So, question for you. Now that Florida is basically, or Central Florida at least, Orlando in particular, is taking action to reinvest back into the film community, right?
Well, Central Florida is not the only one that has a local incentive. There are multiple local incentives throughout the
Their
state.
incentive is not nearly as good as Broward or Dade.
Okay.
Nellis County or Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know that there's one in Orlando.
Yeah, it just got passed 2 weeks ago. But yeah, but a lot of it is driven on incentives.
Let me back up a minute.
Mm-hmm.
We all know things are going out of the country for various reasons. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm not political, but I'm going to tell you right now, If we don't get a full state incentive, we're always going to have a problem. Unless the counties will compound on top of each other like they're doing in Minnesota. Northern Minnesota, you can get 70 to 75% of your money back. And that's in rebates, not credits, in rebates, because the counties compound on top of each other. And that's what has to happen in Florida if to succeed, until somebody gives us a complete countrywide incentive. And that's what's happening in Europe. The countries are given the incentives. It doesn't matter where you work in that country, you get the same incentive. So there's a whole, you're opening up a huge, can of worms or Pandora's box to start trying to nitpick certain situations because of the way that it's being done now. It can't stay the way it's done now. It has to escalate into better thought processes to figure out how to help the film industry, which used to be, and the last thing we really had here was Burn Notice that really put in, because I mean, tens of millions of dollars into this industry and into the vendors. And then it was pulled away because of the political issues that happened in Tallahassee.
And speaking of insurance, everybody, Carol, who is from Hub International, which is our insurance provider as Film Florida, and they do a tremendous job for production, posted in the chat box. I'm going to leave that up in case anybody, wants to get that information. And also you can reach out to me anytime if you do have questions about insurance, and I can connect you with Carol or someone else from Hub. They have been a tremendous supporter of the industry for as long as I've been in Florida. So definitely worth reaching out to her. But now we are going to wrap up this edition.
Sean, is it okay if I ask just one last question for you? Because this is just, and that'll just be it. Because we understand that there's this political and also economic and financial stressor, I want to try to remain as solution oriented as possible, right? So as I mentioned earlier, my team and I, we're converting folks to essentially stunt folks who have fighter backgrounds, right? We're doing the stunts workshops, we're on the ground and we're doing the work, quote unquote. So what I wanted to ask was, in particular, even with the limitations that currently exist, what are we essentially trying to do as a community to center and bring or elevate more of the stunt work here, right, within Central Florida? Because what's happening at the moment is we have stunt actors just writing shorts, right, creating moments just to execute ideas, not necessarily stories. And then we have filmmakers, right, who aren't focused on action-related work at all because it's just not possible. So outside of my team and our initiative, is there anything else in the Central Florida community that we need to be aware of for folks who want to lean into executing logistics for stunts, so on and so forth? Or is this to the extent of the information that we have so far, within the parameters that we can work with?
Penny, are you a member of Film Florida?
No, I don't think I am. No, I'm not.
Are you a member of Women in Film and Television?
No.
Okay. Those would be the two places I start, because you're on an island if you're not part of the organizations that are trying to work to grow and strengthen the industry. Artie is 100% correct. We have one arm tied behind our back without a statewide incentive program. Unfortunately, we don't control that. So I mean, as much as we try to control it by advocating for it, and there's no coincidence that all of the local incentives happen to be members of Film Florida because they're all working together on the same cause. But if you're not a member of one of the professional organizations and networking and getting involved with them, then you're on an island. And so my first piece of advice would be join them so you can engage with other professionals that have like-minded concerns about growing and strengthening the industry from all different aspects of it. And then there's been some good information posted in the chat box, which when we finish up here, I will leave open and not close out, so anybody can scroll through the chat box and get some of that information from some other people. So Artie, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think we've covered as much as we can. I think that, Kenny, you should keep moving forward. Anybody that has a desire to make films is going in the right direction, but it's hard. But unfortunately, like I said, your stunt community, and I've worked with a lot of the wrestlers and a lot of people like that. They're great stunt people right off the bat. They just got to teach them to use their skills a little bit different for cameras. But Central Florida has an amazing amount of really talented people there because of the live shows. And that's where if I was you, I would reach out to them, learn who they are, and they'll be more than willing to help you do what you need to do.
Yeah, a lot of great
Thank you so much.
live performers in Central Florida, and all the theme parks do a certain level of stunt work as well. So they're in there as well. So again, thanks for everybody for being with us today. Thanks to all of our members for their continued support. If you're not a member of Film Florida, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, so we hope you'll consider joining the organization at filmflorida.org. Keep up with everything we're doing on our social media pages. As I mentioned, make sure you check out the Film Florida podcast, which is available on most major podcast outlets. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Thanks again for being here. Be kind and stay safe, everybody.